This video is sponsored by Alpha Draft, who are a fantasy esports service where for CSGO, which is one of the games they offer, you pick out the players you think will do well in a specific competition. Could be the Faceit League online, could be ESL, ESEA, could be a LAN like DreamHack Cluj or the upcoming DreamHack Winter. You pick out the players you think will do well using a salary which limits how many players you can pick. You can't just only pick Olaf Meister, Simple, whoever else. You have to pick some of those really good players, some of the medium players, some of the lesser players. You have to use a bit of your skills, a bit of your knowledge, pick out players you like, think will do well, and then you can potentially win money. Lots of money if you're very good and if you enter specific competitions. There's even free competitions there. So if you want to play, it's in the description box below. Something I think is needed for CSGO analysis, so to make my job better and to make the job in general of people who are doing my type of a job on analysis desks, not only better for us in terms of how we can illustrate to the public kind of what we're thinking and the process of how we're breaking the game down, but also to make the game more structured and, in my opinion, more interesting, is we need a proper pick and ban analysis phase for the maps. Now, we all know, everyone who's watched the game and has watched analysis desks knows that pick and ban takes place between the players. They pick for the single map they're going to play in the group stage. They pick for a series like a best of 3, and for a best of 5 they also pick. And depending on how many they're going to play, is it going to be 1 map, is it going to be 3, is it going to be 5? There's bans that take place first of all, where you ban down the number of maps that are available, then you pick from them. Now, in this particular scenario, it might not seem like that big a deal how this goes, but that actually has a massive impact on how a series will go. If sometimes the team that is, for example, like I'll give you a great example, the final of DreamHack Cluj, the way that tournament went, even though Na'Vi are a significantly worse team than Envious, as in Envious was a clear-cut number 1 or number 2 in the world, number 1 probably, and Na'Vi were nowhere near the top 4 at the time. In terms of teams that are below that level, Na'Vi actually had a pretty favourable matchup against Envious. Not unfavourable as in they could win, but they at least had a decent chance to win one map, because Na'Vi famously are really good on Overpass and Cobble. They are good on Cobble as well, Overpass and Train, and the one map that Envious always used to ban was Overpass, and as a result, Train was going to be available, and therefore it was, and Na'Vi picked Train, and so you saw it was a 16-14 game. It really took an incredible game from Envious that we've never seen from them before on Train to win that map. Otherwise, Envious would have actually lost the first map, and Na'Vi would have won a map, even though there are other teams that are better than Na'Vi, such as TSM, who can lose 2-0 against Envious and just lose outright without taking a map. The point there is the maps have a huge effect on it, and the meta game, the kind of theory crafting of which map you ban, which map you pick, in general, shows off some of the strengths and weaknesses of your team, and more importantly, how you think of your team, and then even more interestingly, how you pick and ban against a specific opponent shows how you think of your strengths relative to theirs and what you want to identify in that match. Like if you take a certain map, like if you take a Mirage against Virtus Pro, it's not their best map anymore, but it's always going to be very good, and so if you're picking it against them or you're letting them pick it, you've got to have a sense for how do we think we can manage them on that map, and then you'll see in the game how it turns out. So really the pick ban and the map selected really does set the tone. It starts the initial foundation for the story of the match, because then you build onto it the strengths of the teams abstract and away from just the maps, then you tie them into the map, and then you tie out how it will play out on the map, and then afterwards you're going through this process again to explain what happened and what was different from what you expected, what you thought would happen. And so the point I'm making here is, at the moment, in the majority of tournaments, we don't have enough time to do this properly. That's why when I didn't go to ESL 1 Cologne, since it's an ESL major and I don't work those, at that tournament, I noticed that, again, they had a discussion on the desk about which maps were going to be picked and banned, but having worked majors and worked lots and lots of events myself, I know you never have enough time. So when I was at home, I thought, right, you know what I'll do? I'll make some videos and they'll be purely on the topic of pick ban. I'll break it down. I'll give you the trends of what teams do. I'll give you what they've been banning recently, what I expect they'll ban here, what would the consequences of banning this be. And in those videos, I had 15, 20 minutes, and I could break down all these teams, break down all the situations in a way I'd never get the chance to on an actual analysis desk. But there's a way around this, which is, I'd like it if there was a pick and ban overlay screen and picking phase in the vein of League of Legends and Dota 2. Now, I'll use League of Legends because it's the most popular one of these games of this type, and people will undoubtedly have seen one of those screens. So what happens is there's an overlay, and the teams themselves are actually picking here, and it shows in League of Legends there's 5 players, and you're picking champions, not maps there, but it's going to be a similar process. So they have the boxes for the players. In this case, this would be the map. So if it's a best of 3, there'd be one box on each side in terms of the map that's selected, in assuming it's going to be best of three, and then there'd be the middle one for however that would be selected. And then we'd have bans, which is what they have on this screen, where they have the champions that are banned. So in our case, we're going to have the maps that are banned. I think a different way you could go about it is you just have all the maps, the 5 maps, the 7 maps, whatever map pool you're going to use in your tournament. And as people ban them, you cross them out or you make them just blacked out so you don't see that map anymore. Now, the key thing about the pick ban screen and what makes it great is that it's not just there for the players. That's what it was originally invented for. It's called draft mode, and that's how the players pick. And the whole point is the reason why there's 60 seconds between each pick. The reason why the time actually exists is purely for the players, so that if someone picks a champion, then they have like 60 seconds to think, oh, I didn't know if he was going to pick that one, or I expected that, so what will my response be? It's for them to think, actually. But it's had an excellent, unexpected benefit of when you come to the televising, broadcasting League of Legends matches, it provides a great structured format for the analysts to talk about the particular game. And this is very important because I can tell you right now, when I go back and watch old matches, or when I've gone back and watched matches from a year ago that I never saw in the first place, one of the great things I love to do, actually, for example, when I watch the Korean League of Legends matches, is I'll specifically go and I'll go through the original VOD and I'll find those pick ban screens and I'll listen to all the analysis that Monty and those guys give you, because they'll be breaking down as they're doing it. Oh, here's a recent pick that's very strong. Oh, they've picked this. Actually, this player's played it 5 times in the past. He's won 4. You know, that will add so much more context and interest to the actual game and structure how you think about the game as you watch it. So that's the thing. In this kind of a sense, it would allow for structured discussion, it would allow for proper analysis to be done, and it means as a result you can show your thought process as the analyst, you can show the thought process of the teams, and you can highlight recent trends. Like, think about this. As we've got the 60 seconds or whatever, as they're picking the map, or you can make it longer since it's only picking 1 or 2 maps, whereas in this other screen you're picking 10 champions overall. You could make it a little bit longer, 1 or 2 minutes, whatever it needs to be. This would give you a chance to talk about what has this team banned recently, what have they picked recently, so you can get a sense for if they're going to ban this, they're probably going to head this way, what their best picks are in general, what their best picks are and what they should pick against this specific opponent. You got time to talk about that. Analysis then when they do pick of what they did pick and reaction to it. Is it surprising? Does it make sense? Is that going to lead into something else in terms of a response from the opponent? It adds suspense, because you don't just get... One of the big problems we have right now is that sometimes when these screens are done, because they let the teams do it themselves, the screen just quickly goes pick, ban, and then auto pick sometimes with the randomizer. That's way too quick sometimes. Or if we just get given the picks on screen, sometimes we don't get told what the bans are, or it just says them on a flat screen. There's no suspense there. You need this build-up of this, followed by this, and the response is this, and then the other team picks something else. That adds like a flow to how you explain it, and how you see it, and how you'll think about the game. Because you'll always remember, oh, I remember that I thought they were going to head in this direction, then they did this shocking pick. If you just see it on screen, it's not the same effect. There's also the fact that when you have this sort of setup, I would have it like in League of Legends, so that the set period of time is also for the players, so they have more time to think about which map they want to pick and deciding amongst each other which map their team's going to pick. But let's say the players don't want to do that. Say the players want the current system, or they even want to do it off camera and not be on camera. Okay, that's fine. I've figured out a way around that. Now, personally, I would have it with a set clock and have them on camera. But if they don't want to take part, here's what we do. We get them to do all off camera, but you write down the exact order that everything happened in, and you still do the same screen. And all we're going to do now is we're going to have an artificial one. So we're not going to take the whole time, but we might have, like, if it's an artificial one, maybe we do only have 60 seconds per map, or per ban, and then per pick. We'll have 60 seconds, and we'll just 60 seconds put one in, and then we'll talk about it, and then 60 seconds put another one in. And even if it's artificial, it doesn't matter. The whole point is the structure is going to be there so that we can discuss it and talk about it. Now, the sad thing is, I think this is a slam dunk idea. I think it would help broadcast so much. I think it would set up the analysis of the game and structure it more, so it's not just free flowing, or you have to have someone like me who's a specialist in that area. Otherwise, people aren't going to talk as in depth about the maps, etc. It would also mean analysts know coming into it that they'll have the proper stats to be able to do this stuff. I have to figure out all those stats myself at those events, which I do. It's no problem for me. But I know some other people, they're more unsure as to how you figure out the stats. Because, for example, one of the reasons, this is just a tangent, as to why I tend to get more accurate predictions on what maps someone will pick or ban, or have more of an insight. It's because I see other people coming with stats prepared, and they'll have done stuff like the last 6 months of every match the team's played, online and offline and at all tournaments. Or they'll come with the last 3 months, but including all online matches. And I've seen some totally skewed results as much as I go. I take I have a set amount. I do differently depending on the team and how many tournaments they've played. But a certain period, let's say 2 or 3 months for a certain team, just an arbitrary number there, it'll be only LAN matches. I'll take out like weird tournaments that don't tend to count in the same way or aren't as important. And as a result, I'll get really pure data. And then I'll go back and I'll look at all the pick bands and I'll figure out what they've been picking about. And as a result, like I say, it's more pure data. I have more reasonable data for what they're going to do in a big tournament than some of these other situations. But that's my own initiative there. You got to help the other analysts as well, because I'm not going to be at every event. So the sad thing is, I've told multiple organisers, think in your mind of some of the organisers I've worked with, I've told most of them to do this sort of thing. I've explained, like I have in this video, what the benefit would be, how it would help them. Most of them either say like, oh yeah, it's interesting, we'll look into that, or oh, we thought of something like that once, or let me get back to you, and then they never do anything about it. And the sad thing is, this is something I always stress, the first person to do this, I really think will revolutionise the industry in terms of Counter-Strike, and I think afterwards, every other org will copy you and come along, and so you can even say, we invented that, we were the first to do it, no one else had done it, and it will be a game changer. It will make events so much more interesting, and so much more insightful in terms of how you draw out of the analysts the interesting information, and it'll set up interviews, because then the person interviewing someone after the match can say, oh, you picked this map, which the analysts were saying actually you tended to ban recently, so there was a specific reason why against this team you picked it. So I think it's something that should be done, and I think it must be done if we want to take the game to the highest level we can in terms of broadcasting and analysis. Thanks to the old alpha drafter Rooney.